Good morning. Welcome to this executive morning brief from us at CBS Executive in a joint venture with IT-branchen, the Danish ICT Industry Association. We have framed this executive morning brief as rethinking strategies in the age of technologies. My name is Tobias. I'm a community director with CBS Executive Fund, and I head up our tech leadership, our strategic initiative, Tech Leadership. Now, we are gathered here because a fundamental shift is underway. Intelligent technologies are increasingly intertwined with core themes in business, such as leadership, organization, and strategy, to the extent that they are not just working at tools, but much rather reshaping how organizations create value, how leaders make decisions, and how organizations shape and execute their strategies. In order to address challenges like this and similar leadership challenges these ages, we at CBS Executive have joined up with Danish ICT Industry Association. That's a long English name we got there.
You can say IT-branchen.
IT-branchen. Oh, that works better, yeah. And are together offering research-based executive leadership programs for all members of IT-branchen.
Yes.
Now, in today's session, we will explore how leaders and organizations need to rethink, reshape their strategies in the age of AI. And in order to do so and to help us dive into this, I'm very pleased to have the both of you join, Natasha and Thomas. Natasha, you are the CEO of ICT Industry Association. You're a powerful voice in the intersection between AI, business, and society. And besides your day job, you help businesses in the form of in your role as a board member, board chair, keynote speaker, whatnot, in shaping AI strategies. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me.
And Thomas, you're a professor with us here at Copenhagen Business School, and in your own right, an expert within this field. You're a professor of market strategy and business development, and you're a leading expert and sought-after advisor on this topic. You just published a new book alongside your colleague Carsten Lund Pedersen, Gunstig Intelligens, Beneficial Intelligence.
Yes, that's easy to translate.
Yes, that's easy to translate, definitely. And to shape your discussion today, we have framed 3 questions. The first one is, how do AI change strategies and business model? Second is, what new strategic capabilities will leaders need to develop? And what are the crucial phases leaders must go through when navigating fast-moving tech developments? Now, just a quick note on the setup we got going on here. We are recording the session. That's the first thing I have to say. Second, we are in a Zoom webinar setting, which means that you are per default muted. We would very much, however, like you to engage with Natasha and Thomas. Please utilize the Q&A function in order to do so. You will not, as participants, be able to see questions in the Q&A, but we will be able to see all questions on the screen in front of us. Please do engage as much as you'd like. It's always much more fun if we engage through your questions. Over to you, Thomas. Let's pose the first question your way. How do AI change strategies and business models?
Yes, thank you. And I look so much forward to discussing this topic, which we have discussed several times, but this time is the first one in English.
Yes, and I have read your book since the last time,
yes.
so I'm better informed.
Oh, it cannot be better. But the first question is basically the core of what we do at CBS, to ask a question to companies. Because the issue is that for some companies, AI changes everything. And for some companies, AI changes nothing, because that's not too close. Now, for your companies, I think AI is a big, I mean, you are at the core with the IT industry at that change. And I think it's for me a double change. So I look forward in a second to hear your reflection on it, because on the one hand side, the basis of some of your firms changes because the technology changes, the game changes, the power play, who is who changes, also the political field changes. So now we would like to have tech giants in Europe. That must be the call for your companies to do so. That's within the industry, but your industry can only survive if they make AI a valuable, value-creating thing for their customers. So it's both for themselves, but also for reaching out. So what's your opinion? You know, how does your companies work with strategy in the AI world?
Well, there is, as you say, a broad difference between the maturity and how companies approach it. We've seen some numbers last year saying that 15% of companies are using generative AI, 5% has implemented it, while 85% of them are still in the pilot phase. Now, that was last year. So this year, the numbers are that the leading companies in the world who's working with AI are allocating 80% of their AI investments towards fundamental models and different offerings, new offerings. So we're seeing a shift from this incremental experimentation to companies really getting it. And those who are getting it also using it to create that competitive edge in terms of changing their business based on this intelligence. So I think we will have the frontiers and we'll have the laggers who will look at the frontiers and say, we'll wait just a bit and see what we can learn and come after. And then again, there's a big difference between big corporations and small corporations, but let's get back to that.
Yeah, but this is exactly what we discuss, or what we work with companies with. You know, how much of that AI actually means a change in your business model, and where does that change come from, or where is it implemented? So is AI something which works for your capability side? So it makes you better, makes you faster. That's what we often hear. You know, you can save time or employees or whatever. Or is it something we offer? And that's, of course, in your industry that it becomes part of the offering. Now we're making jokes, and I know that's not really good. But now you sell AI even in toothbrushes. Yeah. Now what, you know, that there might be not your industry, I know, but
looking for a problem, right?
Exactly. And this is exactly what we like to discuss. You know, is there a real problem which looks for a real solution, and where AI can play into, or is AI more a fancy thing everybody needs to do, but nobody actually gets something out of it? And as you say, we see a shift now that we are going into a phase where this needs to create value, and this value creation is then a change in the business model, and it becomes strategically important. It's not just a play; it's a real thing.
But you're much younger than me, Thomas. But I don't know if you remember back in the zeros and then 10 years ago, every time something new comes, we need a strategy. So we might also say that the question, do you need an AI strategy, is actually also directing that it's at a low maturity. So when something needs a separate strategy, it's because we have to understand what is this, whether it's a CSR strategy, diversity strategy, digital strategy, SOMI strategy, 5G, all those strategies we've made every time new technologies come along. And what we see is then when it becomes more mature, we stop having that separate strategy and we integrate it in. How can this create value for our overall goals in the company? And I think that's the discussion we need to get it back to. So strategy is not a strategy. Sorry, so AI doesn't become a strategy, but it becomes a mindset in the company. Like we don't have an iPhone strategy because it's a part of the way we work, or a desktop strategy. So we still need to get that. What is this odd thing that we need to understand and connect it to some goals in our daily operations, versus how can this be a part of the goals we're fighting for or working for?
You will like the chapter with S for strategy in the book, because that's exactly what we do. How does a given AI project fit the strategy? Not the AI thing, but your strategy. Because if it doesn't, then why, you know, how will that ever work out for a company to be there? And that's the discussions we like to frame and steer, saying how you know, how does it change it for you? Not in general, but what does it mean for your organization to have
Which will make it much easier answering your headline as well on your first question, because if you integrate new technology, also intelligent technology, into your existing strategy, you don't have to start over every time something new comes along. Or there's a new development, whether it's quantum or generative AI or super large language models or whatever we're going to see in the future. So that approach is just, again, creating that strong bridge between tech and business and having those people talk together. That will make the technology a discussion that is secondary to the value. And I think that's going to be healthy.
Yeah, that's what we like to train, teach, whatever you would like to executive educate. Is that the term we use to give the frameworks and the language of business to, for example, tech people, so that they can better sell their capabilities into this frame, which is a company. Or likewise, that we have business leaders who need to understand, where does this AI come in? You know, where in my model will that? So there's a dialogue between the tech and the business side. So that's it. Sorry, I cut you twice now.
No,
Sorry.
Should we let you be a-
He's the host. I mean.
No, but please do feel free to keep it going, both of you. We just been through a rather large sort of research phase, building a new tech leadership portfolio of executive programs. And exactly as you're saying here, a lot of CIOs are still pointing to sort of two major problems. One being that there's still this sort of AI FOMO out there, a fear of missing out, leading to a lot of projects, a lot of initiatives not really being strategically anchored, as you say, a solution looking for a problem to some extent. And on the other hand, the dialogues between tech, IT, digital functions and business functions are still difficult. It's a difficult landscape to navigate. How do you, are you really seeing the shift towards the sort of more consolidated strategies within this field?
I see both. I see from a CIO perspective or an executive perspective, you really want to have this overall strategy and you want to be coordinated and you want to be able to plan and implement and follow up all these things. And you want to point directly at which problems is it we want to solve from an overall view. But we got last year the breakout of AI agents. And I think that's actually going to democratize the way we work with AI, which will set the IT department more out of power. And that's what I hear from real businesses out there, that you have some people who are super engaged in the business and solving problems. They might know tech a bit, but they know the problems even more. And when they start working with AI, because they can, because the tool is just next to them and they're not dependent on the IT department, when they come to the IT department or digital department, they say, no, we need to do it the right way. And I think we need to figure out how can those two collaborate, because the people who knows the problems the best needs to talk to the people who knows tech best. And of course, it's always nice and wonderful to have an overall strategy, but sometimes that's too slow. And also in terms of creating a mindset instead of a strategy, when you have a mindset, you have a culture. And if people get used to using AI as a complementary tool to enhance their day, they won't be as fearful when the IT department comes. So I think we need to figure out how to do this, and we haven't done that yet, but it'll be crucial.
I'm now so old that I enjoy that history repeats itself in a way, because I remember a time when one of the biggest problems in IT was bring your own device. That was a mind-blowing game changer, that people had their own
BYOD.
Yeah, they had their own iPhone with them, but that was nothing the IT department has yeah. And now we live in a world where bring your own algorithm, which is even wilder, because the data transfer and what goes out in these machines and the security around it and cyber and all of that. But this is even wilder. And I remember how painful bring your own device was in many organizations. So that's an interesting thing, that now it's even larger, but it's the same thing that is uncontrolled. And what we work with is, of course, the balance between alignment and autonomy. So we need to understand alignment. Yeah. So where do we need to be one thing in policies, in so forth, also strategically, but also for the AI thing. And where do we want to enable autonomy? And that's a leadership problem. That's a managerial problem. What do we do? And how do we frame that? And what is allowed and what is not allowed? Because we need the energy of, as you say, the wild people who just try and who find out, because they know the problem, they can build something creating. But that tech-wise may not be something which actually destroys value, and they just don't know that there is some hidden issues behind these things. So that's a real a big thing, which we don't have a recipe. We're saying this is how you do it. We have models and ways to discuss how do you find in your organization the way you think is the most value creating in that department. So yeah, I love the bring your own algorithm wildness out there.
You speak a little to it, Natasha, and I guess this is perhaps first for you, Thomas, but do you see AI shift the balance between sort of long-term strategies and short-term adaptability?
Yes and no. That's a typical professorial answer. On the one hand side and on the other hand side.
3 hours later.
Yeah, 3 hours later. Maybe just one pointer. Yeah. We think that AI is an explosive thing which changes the world in no time. AI, what we see currently is something which has evolved over 60 years plus. So it's not, of course it goes very fast now, because we have the resources to be invested, we have new tech algorithms, computer power, data. Finally we found the answer, what we do with big data. We had projects on big data, and that disappeared because then the algorithm power wasn't there. Now we have it, and it's democratized, so children can basically interact with these systems. So that's so it's both. Also, AI is fast and slow at the same time. And that is something we also like to discuss. I can't code, but I love discussions about rhythm and speed. So with AI, are we too early, just right on time, or too late? And there are many opinions in an organization with individual technologies and so forth. But as a leader, you need to have a sense where we are, because it's to be right on time is very hard to achieve. And in an organization, you will have people who think we are all too we lack ambition, and we lack speed, and we lack investment. And you will have other people who say, this is all too wild, and it destroys our operating, and it destroys quality and everything else. So there is a lot to manage in that space in order to move the energy where we need the energy to be.
Change is not distributed evenly. So when we talk about an AI future, a quantum future, whatever future, there are many futures. And when we look back, we've been fastest on the consumer side, because there are companies behind who has an incentive to develop and make money. So that's where we often see the biggest change. But when you look at our kids in school, it's been pretty much the same for the past 100 years. I'm not sure they will get the change as evenly as the consumers will, or in other places. And I think that's going to be the task. And for a person in a rural area in the world who suddenly has access to healthcare, change has happened dramatically. So I think it's going to be in many steps and many dimensions. But what we need to make sure is that we're not afraid, and that keeps us away from trying. And that's where I'm worried about our welfare system. So if we look at our demography, we don't have enough people to have the jobs that is necessary to create growth and wealth and pay the bills, but we're going to get more chronic diseases, more elder people, etc., that needs healthcare. So we need to figure out how can we maintain the quality of our lives, and technology is the answer to that. And then we can say there's also a little geopolitical issue around why that's a good idea as well, but we can take that.
Integrates on many levels this discussion. We have a question up here.
Yeah, I just read the question, and it's very central to our discussion. You know that you're right that many a lot of investments are wasted, massive waste of time, resources, and so forth, because it is invested in things which have no value creation potential, and that's the core question. You know, does it change your strategy or business model, or is it just play? And we are the very interested in play. We love experimentation. We like all of it, you know, but we also like and insist on value creation. And that's exactly how we argue. We have seen a lot of experiments and AI hype and so forth. And now we see more and more companies moving into the space and saying, how do we use that? How is that really creating value for us? And how does it impact our business model, and what part of that? And that's another sort of question or comment is I love that. Yeah, it is very hard. We've written a little chapter in the book, because you can't write about AI without saying what you think it is. And it is impossible to define what AI is, because it is so many different things, so many different technologies. It's related to human intelligence, where nobody knows what that is either, at least not after 1,000 years of research. We can't really agree what it is. So it's very hard to define what it is. The easiest part is to define what beneficial intelligence is, because that is when it creates value. There we have the tools to argue, you know, how does it fit? Where does it, you know, how does it make our business better? And if it is process optimization, which is the easiest business case, because you have a status quo of costs, and then you can calculate how much you can save with what kind of investment. But AI can so much more. It's also innovation, creativity, new products, new services, all of that. So that is the question, and this is why we work in that space, not because we can program. I can't, yeah, but we can give meaning to it and see what's the business value in all of that.
We usually use technology in three phases. We start with efficiency, as Thomas says, and also that the question is pointing at. It's what we can understand and foresee, and we can say we're going to do something a bit better tomorrow than we did today. It's a great business case. Let's try it. So for operational excellence, efficiency, etc., optimizing processes. It's incremental. It's easy to point out the business value. When we have that done and we understand the value of that, we can progress to the next level, which is how can we use new technology to create value for our customers? So how can we use this development outside our company to refine, to optimize, to learn more about our customers' needs, our way of their way of using our products, better sales, better marketing, etc. So customer value. And the third phase is growth. So when we got the internal stuff, we got the external stuff, we can start saying, okay, if we build this, if we manage to create this value, would that be relevant to others than our company? Can we feed an industry? Is there a business in the business? Or can we expand the incremental organic growth just a little bit by doing something differently? So those three phases is what I see in the AI sphere right now. And we're still very much on operational excellence and on efficiency. And that also points to some of the points from the question that's where we see the value right now, but it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there.
You know, because I take it the sort of transformative potential is much more in the both customer value and growth phases, right? And the risks as well.
I think the most dangerous part is to sit in a board or in a board of directors and say, I got this. I know exactly what this is. I can foresee this. We need to manage it. We need to have a strategy. You're missing out all the opportunities, and you're missing out what the company is doing. And if you go out and say stuff that reveals you don't get it, employees will look at you and say, excuse me, do I want to work in a company where they don't see the future and where they talk about technology like we talked about lean and the zeros? Yes, I'm that old. Let's do something better and optimize. It's much more than that, but it's a fine place to start, but it doesn't end by that. Sorry, that's a rant.
Oops, perfect.
Or I like to put things in 2x2 matrices. That's sort of the
You're German, Thomas.
Yeah, and the strategy professor, most beloved tool. And Carsten and I, we have a little thing where we say, is there a growth ambition? Yes, no. And do you have the right business model? Yes, no. And many have currently a growth ambition for AI applications. This is wild. I mean, 3.5% extra cross-national product in the Nordics. But we don't have the business model yet. And in that section, we call it, this is a startup. This is a startup. This is saying, if you don't get it, that you are basically in a startup situation where we need to trial and we need to find out, we need to find the value creation potential and so forth. Once we find out how we use it, and that could be efficiency in the beginning, customer and so forth, then we have the business model and growth vision. That's a scale. Then the managerial task is, how do we scale fast? Do we have the resources? Do we have the sales channel? If that is something which needs to go to our customers, are we in that space? And then, of course, we also have without growth ambition. And that's also fair. I mean, we have companies who have the size they would like to have. And we also need to help them to what we call stand up, standing and protecting their business. And then we have shape-ups, companies who have no growth ambition but no business model. So they are, that's the turnaround cases to work with. So you need to understand which part of our business or which part of AI goes actually where, because that will drive how you need to manage it. Because if you come with something which is startup, no, we don't know, and say scale, you exposed it, you haven't understood it. That you are nowhere near, and as you say, people will look at you and say, if we scale that's the fastest way to bankruptcy. That's not where we want to go. So yeah, there's so many good things.
Yes.
And we could talk on this forever, but we have a couple more questions that we'd like to go through, and a couple of more questions pointing in exactly that direction. How can leaders balance the need for rapid technological adaptation with responsibility and ethical leadership, speaking or pointing towards what are the capabilities we need to build amongst our leaders?
Well, it's interesting to see that 81% of CEOs in Denmark state that they believe that AI will have a significant potential for their business. 71% of them are saying the lack of talent is the biggest barrier. But the most interesting number in that is 55% of those are not initiating anything to get that talent on board. So we don't have the knowledge or the skills to point out what the potential is. We just have some kind of clue that it's out there. And I think that's going to be the first step. Get smart people in the room. And you cannot expect that the organization will have those skills fast, because things move fast, but surround yourself with people who have tried this in other industries, with tech specialists, with business change makers who has actually managed to build the bridge between the business and the technology department, how they're working. So learn. And I think that's the part of the curiosity you need to integrate as a leader today. Not think you know anything, but try to understand, what is it I don't know I need to figure out. And the good news is that there are so many companies one step ahead of you. So reach out to your network or a colleague and say, could you share your thoughts or experiences?
I think with the capabilities, one thing what we work with is that the tech people understand the business world and the business people understand the tech world. That's sort of the border crossing to make organizations work in a meaningful way. Carsten and I published a paper in 2020, so it's 5 years old, where we argued that at that time we called it digitization capability. That was before we should learn that AI is the term to use. And we argued that there are 3 dimensions. One is you need to be capable of handling data. The other thing is to handling analysis. That's the algorithm part. And the third one is permission. And that's exactly what the question is. That's with the responsibility ethic. And people didn't really, I mean, when we were in the US, they said, what is it? And then we had all the scandals with Facebook Analytica and the Trump election and also, and then people woke up to that. Wow. And now you said it before also with democracy, social media, all of that. People are very aware of that there is a third dimension where we need capabilities. We need to understand what is the legal framework, what is the societal, ethical framework, and what is the contractual framework when companies and also consumers work together, and that can limit a lot. We have a discussion in Europe that we are over-regulated, and I, even as a German, I tend to agree that this is too much. But of course, it is very good that we think about regulating and we think about these things, and we have a higher level of responsibility we claim from the actors in the space. But we need to learn, and we also need to learn and build capabilities to know when is enough enough, so that we don't overregulate. What can we expect from companies to take on, and what will be sort of extra? And we have the same discussions in sustainability, in social responsibility, and so forth. But this is something we need to learn because the technology is evolving. So we cannot foresee the consequences, and that is why we have to update our capabilities in seeing through what are we able to do, what are we willing to do, and what are we allowed to do, and that is a big thing.
But you could also say, does that question have anything to do with technology? You still need to have responsible and ethical leadership, regardless of what you're working with. I think one thing is regulation. I do believe that we need to figure out how we can regulate and innovate, because I don't think anyone of us wants to live in a world where we have cars without brakes or seatbelts or airbags. And we need to figure out that balance. And if we could do that in Europe, we have a competitive global edge, because users would rather use that technology and that the technology, no one's bringing with you. So we have an opportunity. We need to take more risks. We need to invest more in capabilities and development. And back to your point before, I built startups for 8 years, and I think that's exactly the startup analogy you're using, that we have a solution right now. And that's what startups have when they come out with something. And then they have a term called product market fit, which means I have something, but it's not really creating value for the market yet. So I'm trying to figure out how it can create value. And if it doesn't create value, we call it a pivot. We'll do something else. And it's the same thing. We might have the best solution or the best tool in terms of technology, but if we're not obsessed by understanding the problem in the business, obsessed by understanding the problem in the market, we're just going to have a fancy tool no one is going to use, and we're not going to make money on it. So that's back to being responsible and ethical. If you really understand the problem, the need for being ethical and responsible will be in that discussion with those who understand the problem. So, and I would say, observe another thing as a manager or leader or CEO, whatever you are. If you discover resistance in the organization, be very curious why, because the departments of the people who are most resistant might be the ones who are worried about being out of a job or out of a function. So the way we build organizations today is with a very strong immune system for defending what we have, and not incentives for moving to what we can get. And we need, as I've been working with innovation and business development for so many years, and it's not technology that's difficult. It's people, it's organizational structures, it's organizational incentives. So create incentives for everyone to win. Otherwise, someone will kill it because they want to survive in that job or just in the world.
We suggest that leaders, managers, they map disturbance of AI projects. So make a discussion, a map of what is the change we're going to infuse, because we realize that sometimes it's not thought through, and then projects are stopped because the turbulence is too high. So how many jobs are disappearing? How many jobs are created, new jobs, in an organization? And of course, if the sort of expectation for an AI project is that 1,000 people will get fired, now that is disturbance, and it will, as you say, have a certain reaction of the organization. And if that's the right thing for the organization to do, if that is a conscious decision, then yeah, but somebody need to lead the organization through that disturbance, through that turbulence. And that is where sort of the world meets the tech and the business world meets that if that's the right thing, then do it. But if we haven't thought about it, or maybe it's just a myth, there's lots of myth about AI in organizations that it will either heal the world or kill us all. I mean, and from that standpoint, it's very hard to have a good discussion in organizations what it really means for us here.
But we should have had that discussion 30 years ago. I think if we talked together in the 90s where we had bad hair and good taste in music, we would have talked about that.
We had hair that was
Good hair. We would have not imagined a workforce or a daily work life where we get to work and when you arrive, someone has posted 50, hundreds to-dos. We call it an email today, but anyone can post to-dos to you and you need to start with those, otherwise you're not responsible. We wouldn't have imagined a work day where we, during a week, in average, spend 9 hours looking for information. We've talked about knowledge sharing, vidensdeling in Danish, for all the time I've been in the workforce, and we never managed to solve it. In average, we spend 35% of our time in meetings. For managers, it's over 50%. Who wanted that work life? So the skills I have, what gives me satisfaction or flow, or where I create a difference, that is a small part of my work. It's all the busy work we create because of the structures or the tools where we didn't ask the question, is this actually beneficial? So I think we have an important opportunity to have that discussion again. What work life do we really want? What is value creation? And what do we want to use people for in terms of what we want to use technology for? And I raise your hand out there if you want more meetings or more emails or want to look more for information or waste time on doing something that someone did 3 months ago, but you don't know where in the organization to look. And we have that capability now. So I want to work in that workplace, please.
But as you both say, these are sort of fundamental leadership capabilities, and they haven't necessarily changed for the last many years. We talked about change management, transformation leadership 20, 30 years ago as well, but perhaps the sort of both the scale and the speed by which change is occurring has increased, so much so that legislation cannot follow, and you see yourself posed with new dilemmas as a business leader, perhaps.
Legislation will always follow. We need to remember that. And of course, if we have a technology which is developing very fast, the gap between legislation and what we can do is very large for a certain period of time until legislation gets to the point. And that creates these ethical problems that we should self-control, or there are certain standards we would like to, and then organizations respond differently based on their value set they work with and how they see the world. So yeah, I mean, you know, the laws which regulate traffic were not invented when the first cars came. It was when there were too many cars to have it random. So we decided on which side of the road we should drive, and then we have some signposts and maybe also a traffic light. And the same will come with AI. But then again, the ethical part, it's really interesting because it's an unsolved problem. That's what makes it interesting. Yeah? There is in certain parts of the AI discussion is that these machines must function without any error before we can set them free. So cars, you know. But if the claim is that no one should drive a car, no technology should drive a car if it could kill someone, then there will be no cars, because humans kill other humans with cars every single day, unfortunately. Yeah? So we also have sometimes very super high, strange claims, and that is also bad for technology development. That you know, we need to find, and that's also ethical. You know, how much error do we allow in our systems, where we say, well, this is way better than human error. So why not, you know? So
how much harm do we allow humans to create versus technology? And I think you're absolutely right. That's what we see in cases where public institutions have tried to integrate AI in terms of kids or in the traffic. We have headlines every time a self-driving car crashes something, but we kill 1 million people in traffic every year. So that's right. We need to balance the harm. And what are the harm if we don't implement technology? So if we look at AI today, the most 5 common cancer diseases can be better diagnosed with AI or as good as a doctor, but also better than a doctor. So, but we're not using it in scale because we're worried that there will be mistakes. But what about all the harm that happens because we don't get people diagnosed fast enough, well enough? And that's the numbers we don't talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the real interesting discussions. So we have applications where AI or technology in general make things cheaper, faster, and better. What's not to like? But not every AI, for example, has these three features. So sometimes AI makes things slower, more expensive, and worse. And this is what we need to discuss. You know, where is the impact? Which capabilities will guide us to a better future? Where yes, it may make mistakes, but overall it's a better application. Or not. So that is, and we have, of course, many 2x2s, but we also discuss where does AI lead to a situation where humans become more stupid. So, and radiology is a perfect example. So now pattern recognition is a home run for AI technology. I mean, this is what they really are good at, and they are better than any doctor because they compare with everything ever diagnosed in the world. So that's really good. But that will lead to a situation that no one actually educates themselves for that because we have a machine doing it. So what happens if the machine doesn't work? Then we have no human because we became, as mankind, more stupid because we have no one left. Like no one can remember telephone numbers any longer. That was a huge symbol of human intelligence that you could remember long telephone numbers and lots of them. And nowadays, but maybe that's not something we need because we have a phone which remembers that for us. So these are the discussions. What does technology actually bring us? And which capabilities can we, some people, some organizations, unlearn? Because technology will reliably do that for us. So we don't need to invest in that any longer. And which capabilities do we need to upkeep, even so technology is better? I like that the air pilot, the people of sovereign air transport, they can run the show with pencil and paper. Because if their computer goes down, I don't want to sit in an aircraft which cannot any longer. So we, you know, that we need to have a backup system which is human. And sometimes we need a backup system which is AI. And these are there's so many questions we need to explore and work with. I think it's a really good time because
we are speaking of time. We are quickly approaching 9:45. Natasha, a final comment from you on Thomas's points here.
I would just say to anyone out there starting to work with AI, be curious and go out and meet people, make partnerships so you get access to people who are smarter than you or are ahead of you. And yeah, try it out.
My final comment is that I was super pleased that this webinar on your website is announced between a CrossFit session and an e-bike tour. And I think it fits perfectly because please do come and train your muscles in strategy, business model, and so forth, and enjoy that as a wonderful ride. And I think that's what there is. And I felt super fit when I saw that I'm between, you know.
Yeah. And we promise you won't be sore tomorrow.
That's a good one.
And thanks for building that bridge, because I just have a final slide to wrap up. Thank you so much for your comments, both of you. I think if there's one thing we can take from this, we didn't close the discussion in 45 minutes. And if you'd like more, if you'd like to discuss this topic further, please note that I have put both my own and Ritter from IT-branchen's names at the bottom of this slide. Please do feel free to reach out. And please do feel free to check out ITB's website, where a number of our executive programs, both within tech leadership, but also sustainable future of work and general strategy leadership and management, which we've also spoken to, are still obviously hot topics. A lot of curated executive programs that are available to ITB's members at a 15% discount. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much for your comments. Please do check out the website and please do feel free to reach out if you have any further questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.